Hey, what's happening, everybody? This is Robert Phoenix broadcasting to you live from Studio A. It looks like we got a good signal, a robust signal, carrying across two multiple platforms, three if you count Boxcast, because that is a platform. You can actually watch us live on Boxcast if you wanted to. How about that? How about them apples? What's going on? What's happening? What's out there? Let me just tilt this down just a little bit. There we go. I think we got it. Okay. Happy Monday. We survived. We made it through. It was very intense last night. This storm just completely kicked ass all throughout Texas. Started up around the Dallas area and just came barreling through the center of the state, like the four horsemen of the apocalypse. This is where you really begin to think about destiny and fate and shit like that, right? Because there was this apartment complex in Dallas, and there was a crane not far from the complex itself, and these winds, which were tornado-like winds, essentially lifted this crane right off the ground, and then it went in and just completely sheared this apartment building in two, and a woman lost her life as a result of that. You know, how random is that shit? So we got through it. They had 20,000 people without electricity last night in San Antonio. I think they're down to about two grand this morning. So a pretty significant meteorological occurrence. We're supposed to have more rain and thunder and lightning as the week goes on, but nothing quite like what we experienced last night. Man, it was dramatic. Let me tell you. 2 hours within the span of 2 hours, roughly, went from sunny blue skies to tornado-like winds and hail the size of marbles. So let me check in with everybody, see how we're doing, see if we're all happening, dry, safe, present, accounted for. We got Paulette, we got Cato, we got Ani, we got Rhonda, we got Steven. Hey, Steven. Yeah, you're up there. Steven's up in the Dallas-Fort Worth there. There's Maury and S. Joan Anderson. Hi, Joan. The Cheeky Monkey. Hello, Cheeky Monkey. That's what we got over on the YouTube side. Let's see what's happening over on the 15 side. See who's checking in over there. Let's see what we got. Heath, enjoy Sunday night show. Let's keep our rights. Well, boys and girls, the heat is on. Before I get into the topic of today's show, which is the chopping block, rights on the chopping block, which is true, by the way, I just wanted to we had a request to do a little astrology in the morning. So I'm going to do that. Now, some of you watched last night's show, so you saw the chart of the moment from last night. But here we are today at 8:26 a.m. Cancer on the ascendant. Here we can see Mercury, Mars, the true node. We're still in that Grand Cross, that mutable Grand Cross activity. Remember last night I said you'd be waking up with that Virgo moon, and sure enough, there it is. Tomorrow this is going to lighten up a little bit. We're still going to have the moon in a cross pattern, but it'll be a square pattern rather, and it'll be in Libra, which will be, it's good. It's a little less critical than the Virgo moon. It's squaring off against Saturn and Pluto. So the first part of this week, we're dealing with some intense emotional energies. The Virgo moon, of course, is critical. We can always be doing better. We can always be doing more. Try to be easy, gentle on oneself, but we do know that the moon is also kind of slotted into a bit of a grand trine here to some extent because of the final degrees of Venus, or the early degrees of Venus moving into Gemini. So it's a bit of a grand trine. So we do have some relief around the moon. Try to find ways to work together more. Right? If you can do that, that's very helpful on this Monday. Or if you're at work, you listen to this, you go to work, or you're at home, working at home, whatever you do, try to work closer together with people. And the mutability is crazy because people change their minds with mutability. And that's one of the things that we're going to be dealing with here over the course of this week. And especially during the first part of the week. Now, we do know that this moon is going to go into Libra. It's going to create a different kind of stress and a different kind of tension, and that's around Saturn-Pluto. And to me, this is the rights issue. To me, this is the rights issue, because when we get into Libra, we're talking about equality, equilibrium. Now, one person's equality and another person's equality can be justified as two different versions of equality. Hello, we're in the month of Gemini. But one person's freedom and another person's freedom, well, that is not as negotiable. That is not as mutable in some ways. Or one person's version of truth and another person's version of truth. That's not always negotiable, because there is truth with a capital T. Yep, there is. Now, a lot of people don't like to hear it, and a lot of people don't like to ascribe to it, because their lower T truth is more meaningful for them. I don't care about truth. I have my truth, so fuck you, right? That's kind of how this thing is kind of evolved. And you show me where my truth isn't as valid as your truth or the big truth. And now we've got all these different versions of the truth running around trying to establish themselves, but there is a big T and there is a little t. And we're going to get some of this over the course of the next few days. Now, I'm going to tell you that there's some action happening. Mike Adams, who, I'm not necessarily always crazy about, but I'm also not, how do I say this? I think Mike's a bit of a bulldog, and that's good. I think the bulldog, we need bulldogs. Well, he's been kicked off of Facebook now. So Mike Adams has been kicked off of Facebook. Natural News is no more. Natural News is off of Facebook. Let me see if I can find this for you. Oh, where are we? Here we go. Let's see what we have here. This is from naturalnews.com. They're announcing what's happened. Well, he's got his own video network now. Facebook bans Natural News. Health Ranger responds with message for humanity. So this is what's happening now. In response to a coordinated, hold on a second. In a response to a coordinated, heavily funded smear campaign against Natural News and myself, the Health Ranger, Facebook has now permanently banned Natural News from posting content. The channel name that has been banned is facebook.com/healthranger, which was our primary channel, reaching over 2.5 million people. So let's just break this down for a second. Let's break it down for a second. Let me get out of this. You can see my face. So those are 2.5 potential customers that Facebook is eradicating. Now, that doesn't mean that those 2.5 million people go away. They're still theoretically a part of Facebook, but if you're really into Natural News, you're really into Mike, and really into freedom of speech, you shouldn't be a member of Facebook. I struggle with Facebook, to be honest with you. I do it because it allows me to have a window into a world that is kind of important to what I do. Facebook has become sort of this appendage that I need to have in some way, so people can stay in touch with some of the events. And clearly, it's been very helpful for us over on the fluoride side, or the anti-fluoride side. So it's serving a purpose for now. But morally, I can't abide by a lot of what Facebook does. So it's kind of a deal with the devil, to be honest with you. And I remember back in the day before there was a Facebook, and my website was really the magnet. And other websites, it was important to draw traffic to your website. So you would partner with other websites. You'd reach out. You would say, hey, look, I'll give you my link. You give me your link. We'll exchange links. And then Google, a long time ago, used to use that as their algorithm. The more links you had, the more sites that were similar to yours, where you exchange links, you began to get higher into their algorithmic computations. I don't think that's really the case that much anymore, to be honest with you. Because at one point, InfoWars was a major driver, and if you were exchanging links with InfoWars, you would you would rise in the Google algorithm. But I think since they've readjusted the algorithms many times over, InfoWars just shows up probably lower in their ratings, and thus, if you had link exchange with them, so would you. So So that's how things work. And I remember when I first started my website, robertphoenix.com, Elsa would link to a lot of my stuff, and man, I got a lot of people from Elsa. It was great. Now all of a sudden Facebook came in, and it really became like the Amazon of that experience, and it took out this very rich kind of connectivity. Like I used to have email exchanges with Elsa, and we didn't always see eye to eye, but it was cool. Like we would talk about astrology, we talk about each other's lives, and that relationship just went away on so many levels. And I think Facebook had a lot to do with it. And even in terms of my own productivity, I used to post every day on my website. And then Facebook came along and I started to post less and less and less and less. And now I do this, which is a bit different. But you can see the effects of Facebook. Anyway, Mike is out of there. So he's got permanent bans on Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, Google News, Apple. So he calls these people techno-fascists, and he's completely right. But getting back to the 2.5 million people before I go on. 2.5 million people, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people, if you think about it. Because those are 2.5 million people that theoretically Facebook can sell certain things to because they're in such a concentrated demographic. Think about that. They're already assigned this kind of value, which is about health, which is about health awareness, health products. And of course, Mike is selling his products. But if you're Facebook and a Facebook advertiser, how can you not resist getting in there and having other related products show up in the feeds? I mean, think about that. Facebook is making a business decision here. And it's a big one. It's a pretty significant business decision. The techno-fascists, including Wikipedia, have decided that no speech that questions any official narrative will be allowed on any platform. Anyone who questions the safety of toxic vaccines, 5G cell towers, geoengineering, chemotherapy, or glyphosate, weed killer chemicals, is now maliciously attacked, smeared, and deplatformed. You're not even allowed to talk about nutrition, anti-cancer foods for nutritional supplements without being labeled a vitamin website accused of pushing fake cures. That's right, the left-wing authoritarian tyrants are now anti-nutrition on top of everything else. It was really interesting. Back in the day, if you were on the left, that meant you were open. If you look at, go back to the 1960s. In the 1960s, it was vegetarianism, it was macrobiotic diets, it was back to the land, it was farms, it was michio-kushi and juicing and raw. And I'm not an advocate for these things in their entirety, but I'm telling you, that's what the mindset was. They were into being natural. This was the stake in the ground. If you were a Reaganite, or no, if you were a Nixonite, you were not in that. You were not in that zip code. You were not involved in quote unquote natural cures. By and large, if you were a Nixonite during that time, you would wind up going to the doctor. Doctors were better back then, so that wasn't such a bad thing. So it's odd now that the left has become this kind of far-right proxy when it comes to personal health. And we all know why that is. The reason that exists is because, obviously, we've got big agri and big pharma and big data, and they're having a big old clusterfuck together. And they're all there right now trying to corral their interests because the internet has been a Pandora's box. And people are using the internet to find things out, to converse, to talk, to be a part of shows like this, and then pass information along, and they are trying to control the flow of information. And we're going to get into two very important bills right now that are kicking around that really bear your attention. Let me continue to read this a little bit here. You're not even allowed to talk about nutrition, anti-cancer foods, nutritional supplements without being labeled a vitamin. We got that. Every website or individual who expresses their view of any dissent against the corrupt scientific establishment immediately labeled fake news. Even as the left-wing media routinely pushed total fabrications about President Trump and anyone who supports Trump. As I've repeatedly pointed out, the tech giants and their CEOs are truly the enemies of humanity. So we've got Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, Jeff Bezos, Sundar Pichai, Tim Cook. These are people that theoretically, now he's got this graphic that compares him to Mao and Pol Pot and Stalin and Mussolini and Hitler, right? We might be able to draw some parallels. We are definitely living in a time of techno-fascism, because these people who are singularly tasked to manage these outlets and these portals have increasingly greater power over how we experience those things or not experiencing them. And it seems to me that there isn't a lot being done on the Trump front or the government front, because the big tech, big data, big pharma, they're all embedded. If you want to get elected, whether you're a congressman or a senator or possibly even a president, you need to take that money. Because if you don't take that money, they'll throw their money elsewhere. They'll throw it at whoever your opponent is. And now you're dealing with somebody who's armed and dangerous with shitloads of cash. And then once they get in, they get to do the bidding of the corporate sponsors. We all know the game. This is nothing new under the sun. But there certainly isn't a great deal of advocacy for people that hold a space for a world that is anti-vaccine or anti-fluoride or anti-GMO or anti-5G. No, we are not barbarians. We're not. What we are is we're people that want to be able to participate in informed consent. And they've eradicated that process. Okay, here we go. Remember, as all this censorship is taking place, the tech giants somehow claim they aren't censoring anyone at all. They claim to have a monopoly on facts or truth and proclaim themselves to have the king's unique right to decide who gets to speak and who must be silenced. These criminals like Zuckerberg, Dorsey, and Cook are unelected, subject to zero transparency, and offer no mechanism for due process whereby channels who are banned might defend themselves against unfair, dishonest smears or fake news attacks run by left-wing journo terrorism hacks, which is true. I posted a video response to the Facebook ban on Brighteon, the video platform we created, following YouTube's deplatforming of natural health and conservative channels. So we're basically living in a time of techno-feudalism. And I've talked about this before, how corporations have become the new state, because they are driving the social programming. If you look at advertising, which I talk about frequently, they're driving the social program. They're driving the social agenda. I talked about this last night in terms of Pride Month, the whole month where we have to deal or subjected to pride propaganda or any kind of other propaganda now that corporations deem that it's important for us to swallow, because what corporations are seeing, obviously, is that one group of consumers is getting ready to exit stage left. Although I don't think you can kick the baby boomers out that fast. I think the baby boomers are going to be around for a while. There's a tenacity with the baby boomers, right? Tenacity. Let's see. Tenacity with the baby boomers. Let me just text it. Sorry. Broke my stream of thought, stream of consciousness. I don't like that. Hi, Rosie. You guys want to say hi to Rosie? Here we go. Here she is. This is the other half of the Rosie Jasper team. And she's a little more low profile, but she's an adorable cat. Very pretty cat. Very refined. But man, do not let that sweet little face, do not let that sweet little face fool you. She is a hunter of the highest order. Aren't you? Anyway, yeah, we're dealing with techno-feudalism. And because now what they want to do is they're looking at this massive number of millennials, and they're saying, this is our customer base. This is our customer base. We need to pander to our customer base. We need to get in with this group, with these people, because they're going to be here and this group is going to leave. And not only that, but it is not just an economic imperative, or it's not just an economic model that they're supporting. It's an ideological one. And if you look at who corporations have put into positions, key decision-making and power, I would say ideologically they're very much opposed to things like, well, anti-vaccination, anti-fluoride, anti-GMO, anti-5G. I think they're generally, by and large, opposed to it. Number one, because in many cases, it is in contradiction to their business model. And number two, that there seems to be kind of this labeling of independent thought that is associated with those key sectors, those key platforms, those key positions that a lot of us are very, very passionate about. And those tend to be people who are independent thinking. And the whole goal here is to eradicate independent thought. I read a great piece on Morrissey over the weekend. And a lot of you guys know who Morrissey is, the singer of the Smiths. And Morrissey was one of those guys, and still is. He's one of those guys that just wants to take on the establishment, whatever the establishment is. So if you go back and you look at the Smiths and their body of work and what Morrissey stood for, I mean, he was a big human rights guy. He's sexually ambiguous, sexually fluid. I mean, Morrissey was this group that we're dealing with now before this group even existed. He should be a patron saint for this group, for crying out loud. But Morrissey, being Morrissey, is also into the truth. And he has seen how reality is being manipulated. And he saw how reality was being manipulated at a certain point in time during the 80s and the 90s, where he was quite political in a lot of ways and was kind of this truly rights-based musician, singer, songwriter. And now he's seeing that the cheese has moved. And he's seeing now what's happening to Britain, this place that he grew up and he loved. He's seeing what's happening to the demographics of Britain. He's pro-Brexit. He's like, hey, look, I'm really about freedom and truth. Ultimately, the right for a person to do what they want to do, and not any group being able to censor or to keep them or eradicate their rights from doing that. And now he's like, they won't allow his record. He's got a new record called California Sun, S-O-N. They won't allow that record into record stores in England now. People actually protest when he performs. I mean, the whole thing has just gotten to be bananas. Absolute bananas. When you have somebody like Morrissey who is, unless you toe the party line now, unless you are in the party, now, and it has evolved into the party. Right now, I'm watching a fight between Rosie and Jasper. Hey, knock it off. Uh-oh, this is a tough one. Rosie has, there's hissing going on. Hold on a second, this could be dangerous. Hey, get down from there. All right. Sorry, a little drama there. No, normally I'd let them work it out. But the scenario is that we've got a cat condo, and the perch of the cat condo can only fit one cat, and it's sitting right next to this stand-up lamp that has these bulbs exposed. So, being the good parent that I am, well, maybe I should cat-proof that lamp. Hasn't been an issue till now. Anyway, they're going after Morrissey, and it's bizarre. It's bizarre because this is the guy that really, theoretically, they should have in their camp. Unfortunately, the camp has moved. It's become a different camp. All right, I wanted to bring a couple of things to your attention. These are very important Senate bills. This one is Senate Bill S-788, which is the Equality Act. Okay, so we're getting into gender rights. Introduced on 3/13/2019. Nice little Piscean bill. This bill prohibits discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity in areas including public accommodations and facilities, education, federal funding, employment, housing, credit, and the jury system. Specifically, the bill defines and includes sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity among the prohibited categories of discrimination or segregation. This is a Civil Rights Act, essentially, for gender. The bill allows the Department of Justice to intervene in equal protection actions in federal court on account of sexual orientation or gender identity The bill prohibits an individual from being denied access to a shared facility, including a restroom, a locker room, and a dressing room that's important to the individual's gender identity. Think about that. They want to federalize anybody going into any bathroom, okay? So I assume that some of you still have young girls out there, or if you don't, you probably have daughters and sons that have young girls. You really, really want somebody who is creeped out and identifying as a woman going into the restroom where a young girl is taking care of business. Do you really want that? Do you really, really want that? What about locker rooms? Think about that for a second. Locker rooms. What if you've got a daughter in high school, and you got some young guy who's like, yeah, I'm identifying as a woman, and I need to use this locker room. This is where government goes too far, way too far. They're mandating public space in a way that I don't agree with, and obviously there's going to be more to it than just that. You can bet your ass on that. Okay, you can bet your ass. There's another bill which is floating around. Let's see if I can find this one. That again you need to pay some attention to here. So that's S788, and that is up and getting ready to get voted on. So let me look at this one here. There's another one that is a hand in glove bill. And let's see what we have here. Okay, so we have, let's see, we've got Resolution 72. Then we have Resolution 183. I think that's the biggie. Oh, we've got a bunch here of SH47, sponsored Ron Wright of Texas. Then we've got Jamie Raskin from Independent from Maryland. HR 221. And it's the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. It's the S852 of 2019. And that's Tim Scott, Republican, South Carolina. So we've got a bunch of bills floating around now, likely written by the ADL, that essentially what will happen is that if it is deemed that the intent is to harm or harass a person belonging to a specific group, that if it's deemed to be intentional and fall under the rubric of hate, they could get 3 times the amount of what the sentence or what the bill proposes to be a penalty. So for instance, let's say you go out and you slam Benjamin Netanyahu because you don't like his politics. Well, what's going to happen is if you're under this bill, if you're found to be anti-Semitic or you have a relationship with Israel that is antagonistic or antipathetic, then you will be ultimately not just censored, but you could do serious time. And this is a complete abrogation of the First Amendment. And when we have things like this that are floating around, that can be voted on, and can completely and utterly choke off our constitutional rights, what will happen? Well, we'll probably get events out there that will be staged just as these bills are about to go to passage, so that people look around and go, oh boy, I better sign this bill. Because if I don't sign this bill, I'm in big trouble. And the rhetoric has gotten really thick. The rhetoric is thick, and people are starting to really push back on these kinds of oligarchic entities. It's like, enough already. Crying out loud, enough. You know, people are starting to just say, leave us the fuck alone. You know, we want to be able to live our lives. We live our lives without a lot of nonsense, a lot of bullshit. And ultimately, it's a spiritual act. It's a spirit trap because we're defining our sovereignty. And our sovereignty is our relationship with the divine, with the creator within, like the Most High. That's the most sovereign relationship we have. And when we align with that, that's our beacon, right? That's our tractor beam for freedom and truth. We have to align with that. And as we align with it, we have to look around and say, this is getting in the way of the signal. This is getting in the way of the signal. And we have to eradicate what's getting. Nobody is wanting to sponsor hate. Nobody wants to go out and condemn other people solely because of their so-called differences. But what we do want to have is we do want to have the right to be critical. We do want to have the right to reserve judgment. And we do want to have the right to be able to speak our hearts and speak our minds. And this is really important. It's vital. It's the one thing that keeps us from an absolute tyranny, and we're on the verge of it. We're on the verge of tyranny here. And tyranny is defined by language. It's totally Orwellian. And I'd like to see what President Trump can come up with this. It's very interesting because we know whom he seems to be really connected to. You know, people who advance his programs via money and loans and quite possibly even oaths. So if you are still in the MAGA always Trump category, this is going to be a real litmus for how he responds. And a lot of people are dropping off the Trump train because what's happening with the border. That's another show. That's another time. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. It's a mess, man. It is a total mess. Whatever you think of borders and walls and countries and demarcations, what we've got is a complete and utter mess. And again, it's not just people from Mexico or Central America. There are people coming from all over the planet. People coming from Central Africa. There were a number of people who were released in San Antonio last week who were from Cameroon and Congo, just released in the streets of San Antonio. And they came through the border. They've got no process now in place. It's broken. The people get to come through. If they have a kid with them, that's their passport. And because they have no process now to really process them, they just drop them in cities. This is what's happening. And it is absolutely and utterly irresponsible. Totally irresponsible. Meanwhile, our cities are becoming more and more populated with the homeless, which is extremely unfortunate. I was driving through Austin this weekend and just looking at the encampments. Any city, do you think they have homeless in China? No, they don't have fucking homeless in China. Do you think they have homeless in Russia? No, they don't have a homeless problem in Russia. They don't. Do you think our great friends in the Middle East, you know, in Tel Aviv would allow for a homeless problem? No, they wouldn't. And it wouldn't be out of some desire to be kind and beneficent. No, it's just a bad look for their cities and their countries. And yet here we allow it. It's one of the most tragic ironies that we as Americans in the 21st century are dealing with on a daily basis. All right, let me check in with you guys. Let me see what's happening over in Chatlandia. What do we have here? We have 56 people watching. We've reached over 700 subscribers now on this channel, so I'm psyched about that. I'm totally psyched about that. And then over on the other channel, I've reached over 5,000 subscribers. So slowly but surely, we are rising here. Let me just see what we got going on the chat side. Keeping us from our own divine essence has been priority number one for millennia. Absolutely. From MAGA hats to small hats. Let's see. The Ebola traffickers. Got to go. Have a good day. Bye, Ian. Have a great day. Have a great day. I'm about to get out of here, too. So this is your Monday morning wake-up call. This is your shot of triple espresso. A very famous country that's surrounded by a wall and tons of people. Masses love it. The Vatican. Oh, that's so funny, Andrea. Good call. Very, very good call. So, oh, there's Joe Dimitri. Hi. Lots of lawsuits waiting to happen. Yeah, well, let's see who we go. So I guess if you're a lawyer, it's a good time to be alive. Lots of adjudication happening. Okay, I'm out of here for today. Thanks for being a part of today's show. This has been your triple shot of espresso on Monday, your Monday morning wake up clarion call. I'll be back tomorrow with another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. So thank you all for showing up today. It's always a pleasure. You notice how we had very little buffering today? I solved my problem. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you are you, and I'm grateful that you are. Take good care. I'll see you on Tuesday.